Here's England's oldest bank. It lasted for 230 years until this man destroyed it. I want to understand the mind of a person who would do anything to get to their goals. So meet Nick Leeson, the trader who lost $1.3 billion of Barings money. The bank would be forced to close down, and this caused thousands of people to lose their job. He was born in Watford to a middle-class home. Nick was an average student growing up, but was able to secure a job at Morgan Stanley. He didn't stay there for long. He had bigger dreams, and that was to become a trader. After getting rejected from his supervisor for promotion, it was his mission to find a bank that would want him as one. Soon he applied to Barings and would get accepted as a clerk. What he didn't realize at the time was that this wasn't an ordinary bank. It was founded in 1762. Barings was one of the largest and most respected banks in the world, but behind the scenes they were struggling to keep up with the more modern banks, so their revenue was slowly dipping down. That's not good. But even still, Leeson would work his butt off. After starting in 1989, Nick would climb up the ranks. During his time working there, he would use his coworkers as a way to get a higher position in the company. He would never see them as possible friends or anything like that. He just saw them as tools.
It's very easy for me to get on with people, but I don't necessarily have to like you. At the end of the day, if you're going to ask me out for a drink, I'm not going to go out for a drink with you because I don't like you.
Something you might notice later in his story is that it's very similar to Lil Eugene trying to lie about his grades to get a new toy. There was never a point where lying was not an option. His years of hard work finally paid off when Barings gave him a position of a trader. He would be in charge of a new futures division in Singapore. After convincing his wife to move there, Nick really enjoyed the pressure and stress of futures trading, which are bets on how the market will move. However, that year would fluctuate a lot, causing Nick's team to start losing money. Rather than telling his supervisor about the loss, he went another route, which was to hide them in a secret account. Nick altered the software of a separate account so his bosses in England couldn't keep track of it. His hope was to make back the money with future wins, and that account would hold all of his active losing trades. This was still not the end of his worries. He still needed to pay his margin payments in order to keep his trades open. To combat this, he told head office at Barings that he needed money for futures that he bought for clients. In reality, the clients didn't exist. No questions were asked though, and the money was sent. From his perspective, he found a loophole in the system. He could lose money on trades, but just ask for more. Nick's lies would continue to build up like a roller coaster. We're right here, but we'll soon see it move to the top. Barings was starting to take massive losses, not even taking into account the amounts Nick lost. So they hired Pierre Norris to get out of debt. Immediately stepping in, he noticed that Barings was a huge mess.
If operating losses had continued the level they were, that could have had a very serious effect on that business's ability to finance itself.
Peter still didn't know about Nick's hidden accounts, so their increasing debt was a lot worse than he thought. By the end of 1992, Nick's losses had grown to £4 million. Instead of taking the L and walking away, he doubled down with his gambling strategy. He bought hundreds of more futures, which was extremely risky because at the time the market was fluctuating a ton. But if it did go his way, he would see dollar signs everywhere. The crazy part is that it actually happened. By July of 1993, he covered all of his losses. Nick described the 9 months leading to it as a living nightmare. Unfortunately, this didn't last for too long. Instead of learning from his mistakes, he just learned that he could commit fraud without any consequences. Nick now saw an opportunity to become extremely rich. Just like Eugene, he continued to lie because it worked the first time to get his fair toy. It might work again. Okay, I know the story has taken many twists and turns, but I was wondering why a person like Nick would lie so much to a point where he's now committing fraud. I found 3 reasons why he might be doing this. We already know one, but here's the other 2. Barings Bank was starting to look better. With the help of Peter, he was able to lower their debt. They still needed additional help, so they brought in Ron Baker to become the new head of in-house trading. Soon after, Baker noticed that a lot of money was coming from Nick's department, so he called auditors to check in on him. At the end of 1993, Nick's strategy of doubling down didn't go according to plan. He amassed losses of £94 million. Ouch. That stings. He knew if the auditors found out about his secret account, it would be all over. Things would be in his favor because they didn't find anything about it. One of the things that they missed was that he was in charge of the trading operations and the accounting despite his clients never paying any of their fees. Barings didn't think too much of it because they were still making money. Or that's what they thought, because Nick was buying futures from himself to fake massive profits. He was slowly becoming known as a powerful trader even though his losses would now be at £160 million. He wanted to perceive himself as a successful trader.
They all say, oh, what would you like to be? And he say, I would never want to be rich. I want to be famous. I want to be well-liked.
Nick would claim that he made millions in profit, and everyone believed it. In December of 1994, Barings held a traders conference and Nick was the star. On paper, he made the bank £28 million that year alone. There were people in the audience who didn't believe it, but at the same time, they were excited to get their huge bonuses that year, including Nick. Keep in mind that he was getting paid very handsomely for his fake trades. I can't believe that he still got away with his deception, but somehow it got even crazier.
By the end of 1994, the equivalent of 3/4 of Barings' capital had been sent to Leeson.
£330 million was in the hands of one man. To understand the amount he had, the average home in the US cost $374,900. That could buy you 900 homes or entire companies. Instead, it was sent to Nick. He felt the pressure building up, but still, he placed a bet on the stability of the Japanese market because there was no economic or political factors impacting it. This would work out for a little while, and at the pace he was going, he would be able to pay off all of his debt. However, the Kobe earthquake would change that forever. On January 17th, an earthquake struck the Japanese city of Kobe. It killed 6,000 people and left 45,000 people homeless. The Japanese stock index in which Nick was trading went tumbling down. Out of desperation, Nick placed one more bet and bought thousands of more future contracts to hold the market up. Even this wouldn't be enough. There would be days where he lost £50 million, but he still continued. At this moment in time, Barings still thought they were making a bunch of money based off of Nick's non-existent profits. In a week, Nick reported that he made £10 million and they didn't question him at all. Something very important did come up, and this time it was really hard to ignore a £50 million loss that Nick forgot to hide. Because of this, he would soon see the same fate that Eugene saw when his parents was sent his actual grave. He tried to cover up the document using scissors and glue. What is this, an arts and craft project? Somehow, the auditors believed him, but finally, on February 17th, a Singapore clerk did notice that some things were wrong with Nick's accounts. He was notified about these discrepancies, but he didn't have a clear answer for them, and that's when Nick realized that his time was up. Nick told the clerk that he had to run home to go check in on his sick wife. Instead, he just packed up his bags and drove his wife and him to an airport to board a flight to Malaysia. While he was gone, Barings officers in England finally got access to one of Nick's accounts, and it was just terrible. They knew that Barings was on the edge of bankruptcy with these gigantic losses. The bank was looking for a bailout from the England Central Bank, but their losses would reach £830 million or $1.3 billion, and it was just not possible to save them. That was sadly the end of them. The oldest bank in England collapsed. November 20th, 1995, Nick was arrested in Germany and was brought back to Singapore. With all of his lies piling up, it was only a matter of time when they finally caught up to him. Same thing happened to Eugene when his parents saw his actual grades. Nick was sentenced with 2 counts of deceiving the bank auditors and received a 6.5-year prison sentence. He only served 4 years, then got released on good behavior, and he's currently now a public speaker. Denial cost him and many others to lose everything. He never stopped trading when he should have, because he was under the thought that he was a great trader and could get out of any situation. This could have been easily avoided if he just told the truth at the very start. Yes, most likely he would have lost his job that he worked for, but that would still have an entire bank running and employing thousands of people. Barings was also in the wrong for having so much trust in one person and having profits dictate everything. Still, if you really want to know why people like Nick continues to lie, this isn't enough on its own. There's actually one more thing you have to combine with it, and I found without this, you just won't understand how criminals game the system to benefit themselves. And that's why you really shouldn't ignore this video here, because it's going to take what you just learned and make you more knowledgeable.